as we approach our 20th anniversary in a couple seasons, it's interesting to look back at our roots. As you may know, our name, Brooklyn Rider, comes from Der Blaue Reiter, or the Blue Rider group, which was an artistic collective active about 100 years ago, 110 years ago, right before World War I, led by the painter Kandinsky alongside Franz Marc. And of course, Kandinsky got into an incredible correspondence and artistic relationship with the composer Arnold Schoenberg, as they were both going towards abstraction in the visual and sonic arts around the same time. And we just loved the idea of the Blue Rider group's very porous approach to artistic inspiration, very eclectic. And there was a moment there in that artistic collective of Munich around 100 years ago that we felt had somewhat of an analogous moment in Brooklyn when we were getting started, where there was such an amazing group of artists who were living in Brooklyn and we were in contact with through our work as well. So I think our mission has always been to view the quartet as a very porous vehicle for exploring not only the traditional rep, of which there's such a vast, beautiful history there of quartet music, but to actively push the art form forward through collaboration and through the creation of new work, but to always find a way to tie that meaningfully to the tradition. So I think because of that broad approach, our mission hasn't essentially changed, but it has allowed us to explore such a wide variety of music over these almost 20 years. And we can't wait to share some of that with you in November with our new Brooklyn Rider Almanac.
To be honest, I think you could put the title Sandbox of Invention on almost any program for a string quartet, because after all, the genre and the medium of the string quartet has been a place of incredible musical invention over the course of its history, where composers have used the string quartet to push the prevailing musical language forward in very significant ways. However, I think this program is a particularly good example of this, and of course we start the program with Haydn, and there probably is no greater inventor musically than Haydn, who wrote some 70 string quartets. No two of them are alike. We move from Haydn to 3 new commissions for our Brooklyn Rider Almanac. This is a project that we started about 10 years ago, recorded an album. This is the second installment of it. So these 3 works are literally brand new. A couple of them, the ink is still drying. And we're really excited about that. And these pieces are by composers that I think are people we have identified as the great inventors of our time. And so we really look forward to presenting that. Sofia Gubaidulina is a composer from Tatarstan, is somebody I think who has some kind of magical lens to the future, or perhaps even to the heavens. Her musical language is unlike anybody else's out there. And of course, we end the program with Schumann, who through his unique musical language very much helped to define the Romantic era. And I think this particular string quartet doesn't play by anybody else's rule book, and in and of itself is a source of incredible invention. I find it also interesting that sometimes invention is not just about looking forward, it's about looking to the past and getting inspiration. And both Gubaidulina and Schumann looked to possibly the greatest musical inventor of all time, though he didn't write works for string quartet, J.S. Bach.
So in 2014, Brooklyn Rider unveiled a commissioning project called the Brooklyn Rider Almanac, which was inspired by our namesake group, Blue Rider and their Almanac, which was a collection of artworks, essays, music scores, illustrations, paintings, tapestries, bronzes, woodcuts, and this was published over 100 years ago, and it sort of reflected Blue Rider's artistic ideals of the time. Cross-cultural, international, interdisciplinary, and inclusive. This was really basically an examination of the relationship between the arts and modern society at the time. And so this idea, this exploration is just a bottomless fount of creative inspiration for all artists, and this is why we are returning to this idea for a second installment of the Brooklyn Rider Almanac project, a part of which you will hear on our Sandbox of Invention program.
So, our program will include 3 new works written for this installment of the Brooklyn Rider Almanac. The works were written by Sorey, Gabe Kahane, and Clarice Assad. And these are all composers that we've admired for a long time. Gabe has been a friend for many years. In fact, we did an album together, I think probably almost 10 years ago now, called Fiction Issue. And his piece is called American Studies. And it's based on a song of his called To Be American from Gabe's most recent album called Magnificent Bird. Clarice Assad is a Brazilian-American composer, pianist, singer, fabulous musician from an incredible family of musicians. And we haven't had a chance to work with Clarice directly yet, so this is very exciting that she wrote us a piece called Cinematheque. And Taishan is someone that we've also admired for a long time, and even though we haven't had a chance to work with him directly as a string quartet yet, a couple of us have worked with him in other capacities. Michael has performed Taishan's music as part of the International Contemporary Ensemble, and Taishan wrote a solo violin piece from my project, This Is America, which I performed in Philadelphia about 2 years ago. So we're very excited about these works and can't wait for you to hear them. Over the years as a string quartet, we've been very lucky to work with many collaborators, both within and outside of classical music world. And yeah, these people have inspired us so much and have affected our lives, not just as musicians, but as friends. So I'm thinking about people like Kayhan Kalhor, the fabulous Iranian Kemanche player and composer, the Irish fiddler Martin Hayes, the Mexican singer, jazz singer Magos Herrera, Bela Fleck, who doesn't need any introductions, the incredible singer Anne-Sophie Van Otter. And these are always people who are, they're masters of their own traditions, but they're also very curious about the outside world, and they're always looking for ways to present their work in new ways and thus push the tradition forward. And that's a great model that we aspire to as a string quartet.
This program is bookended by Haydn and Schumann, and of course in the middle we have the music of our time. And I think, first of all, this represents very much the kind of program that we like to do, is to have a foot in both worlds, in both new and old. I think it should be pointed out that in the time of Haydn, people were playing exclusively, almost exclusively, the new music of the day. when we jump forward to the world of Schumann, we get to an era where they're just starting to take a retrospective look at what comes before. So with the revival, and thanks to composers like Mendelssohn, but with the revival of the works of Bach, for instance. But now we live in a time where we have at our fingertips the entire history of music. And I think that's just such an exciting prospect for musicians and audiences alike. And we like our program to reflect a broad range of time and epochs. And I think there's just something magical that can happen in that kind of dialogue between new and old. And I think that's largely for an audience to discover. I will say some of our favorite moments with audiences are when we talk to audiences afterwards, and someone might say, well, I came because I really love Schumann. I love the Schumann Quartet, but what I walked away from really discovering and loving very much was the new commission. Or the opposite. Somebody might say, well, I really love that you're doing all this new music, and I love, this composer or that composer. But what I really discovered in the course of this concert was the incredible world of Haydn, which I didn't know before. And I think that just sort of sets up a possibility for discovery that I think is lovely and something that is possible to be surprised by.